At a majority of state houses across America, including here in Massachusetts, governors have expressed wariness, even resistance, to resettling Syrian refugees in their states. For its part, the government says its two-year vetting process is safely rigorous, and besides, others point out, to deny refuge is against our nation's values. Where do you come down?
They should be allowed here in other states, but they have to go through a process, and the process has to identify who they are.
I think we should allow them to resettle here.
The risk is not too great. I mean, it's a humanitarian issue.
What's your sense of that? Should more be allowed in?
Why not?
Yeah, I don't think they should be let over here.
No.
No, I don't. I agree with them.
I think the refugee crisis is due to the war in Iraq that George Bush started. And I think it's up to the American people to step up and take care of people that they've displaced.
I think we should allow them. I feel like it's a humanitarian issue.
And this country was founded on immigrants and people having a chance to improve their lives and certainly flee from oppression and terrorism.
It's time now for the OTR Political Roundtable, and we're joined this morning by Democratic analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican analyst Eric Fernstrom. Guys, thanks for joining us this post-Thanksgiving day.
So you heard what Ted had to say, what the public has had to say about this. Are presidential candidates taking their lead from the public, or are they leading the public on this particular issue, Marianne?
I think on the Republican side, they're pandering to their base more than anything. When you hear the rejection of refugees, the return of waterboarding and all that. On the Democratic side, I would point to Hillary Clinton, the speech she gave. I think she's leading there because she's actually out in front of the president on this. So you see two very different approaches with both parties.
I have a feeling you disagree on that, huh, Eric?
Well, what I'll say is, of course, you have to maintain a humanitarian perspective always, as we have as a nation. But at the same time, you can't ignore the safety and security concerns, especially in the wake of what happened in Paris. So I think what you're seeing is all the candidates responding appropriately to what happened, except people like Hillary Clinton, who has actually proposed letting in more Syrian refugees than even the president wants. So, look, there needs to be a balance between, we can't shut the door completely, but we can't adopt a head-in-the-sand approach either. So we need to.
There's no head in the sand approach. The fact is, it takes 2 years to come into this country as any kind of refugee, which is a very stringent approach to all of it, with every security concern taken into consideration, national security and all.
Those are just words, because
no, they're not words. That's
we have
the law.
experience
That's
here
the law,
in Massachusetts with
That's
terror.
the law.
We have experience in Massachusetts with terror. We have refugees who were responsible for the Boston Marathon bombings.
American citizens.
So to ignore that,
they were American
but they
citizens.
came in here as refugees. And to ignore
American
that is the head-in-the-sand approach that we need to avoid.
Let's talk about the presidential race. Item 2, Donald Trump is still leading in the polls, but there is one non-candidate who is getting bigger numbers, and that's Mitt Romney. So, Eric, I want to start with you. Is there any chance that your old boss might indeed rethink his decision and jump in?
Well, he's a leader in the party, and I think the poll in New Hampshire reflects that. The rank and file in the Republican Party likes him. They want him, but he's not going to reconsider his decision not to get into the race. People always want most what they can't have. But the good news is we don't need Mitt Romney to defeat Hillary Clinton. Fox News did a poll last week that showed 6 different Republican candidates beat her head-to-head. And I think the reason for that is because national security is the new focus of this race. And there's a recognition by the American people that Hillary Clinton and the president have failed at containing terror.
Well, here's the beauty of it. The draft Romney campaign continues, and it's just so interesting to watch Eric and all of his former colleagues in the Romney campaign, you know, behind this whole effort. Eric's writing op-eds trying to make Hillary Clinton out to be the second coming of Dick Cheney. All of his colleagues nicely divided themselves up amongst other Republican candidates running for president. Spencer Zwick, the money man for Romney, now working for Speaker Ryan to freshen up his fundraising contacts, and I don't think it's a coincidence. So I think Mitt Romney would love to be the Republican nominee and positioning himself to be the establishment nominee, because none of the Republicans are going to be able to beat Donald Trump. So that's exactly what Eric is up to, because Eric's not with anybody except Mitt Romney, because he's writing all these op-eds and trashing Hillary Clinton every day.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. I don't know where to begin. I think Marianne wants Mitt Romney in the race.
But
look, we have 14 candidates.
Am I wrong?
You're wrong that Mitt Romney is reconsidering his decision.
You're throwing a match on gasoline, buddy.
He's not going to get into the race, but we don't need Mitt to defeat Hillary Clinton. Half the Republican field beats her right now.
Brokered convention? He's not going to accept if his party and his country calls him. He's going to say no.
No, I think these fever dreams of the Democratic Party are
okay, we could stay on this for all morning, but let's move on. Governor Baker got incredibly high marks in a poll that was released by Suffolk University this week. His popularity, his handling of problems, got over 70% approval in most areas. What's the secret, Eric?
Well, I think the secret for him is that he's very good at establishing these bipartisan relationships with the legislature. If you're a Republican governor in Massachusetts, to the extent you can get anything done, it's with the cooperation of the Democrats in the legislature.
Charlie Baker does well when he doesn't act like a Republican, and that's what voters in Massachusetts liked about him the most. And when he acts like one, especially about refugees and other matters, they don't like him so much. If he tags himself to the National Republican Party, his numbers will go down.
On that same poll, one area where voters are clearly unhappy is the T. 73% think its performance is fair to poor. So could this be his biggest political albatross?
Brian Shortsleeve on the show last week, totally understands the challenge here politically, as does Governor Baker, and with DCF. Those are the two things they got to solve.
What do you think of that?
Well, if the MBTA is his biggest problem, then he has nothing to worry about. The MBTA service issues can be addressed with new leadership, which they've put in place. I don't think Charlie Baker wants the MBTA to be the centerpiece of his re-election. He's got a lot of political capital in the bank. You can see that with the latest polls that have his approval rating up around 70%. My guess is he's going to come forward with a very ambitious agenda. We'll begin to see some of that in next January's State of the
Everyone
State
always cleans
speech.
up after their predecessor. That's what he's doing.
Really quickly, Baker's 100-day legacy clearly intact. So my question is, will any Democrat even think about challenging him, which they would have to do within the next year or two, Marianne?
Every Democrat knows that at the end of the day, Charlie Baker only won this race by 40,000 votes the first time, outspent his opponent by 10-1, and it was not the strongest campaign or candidate. Better campaign, competitive financially, tough race for him.
What should Democrats
do? Massachusetts is the capital of the Democratic Party. It's the home of Kennedy, Kerry, Dukakis, and
Romney, Wells,
Charlie Baker won election with less than
Brown.
50% of the vote. So, of course, he needs to be concerned about a strong Democratic opponent. He also has to be concerned about keeping conservatives under the Republican tent, because the last thing he wants is a third-party challenge.
And what are we thankful for? We'll get into that in just a minute.